I came across an image from a Tumblr post about plant blindness, and it's given me a whole new perspective on description. Hey Dragonlings, welcome back to my channel. If you are new, my name is Skye. I'm a fantasy author who typically writes paranormal romance under the name Hegyes, and today we're going to be talking about description in books. So I mentioned that I got this idea from a Tumblr post. And what it is that there was a screenshot of a Tumblr post that was talking about recognizing plants in an area and studying plants in that area with a different mindset, and how once you start learning the flora in a particular place, you can't just stop. You suddenly recognize it everywhere, basically. And it made me start thinking about different things, and it was like how I feel about buildings and architecture in particular, because I recognize different architecture, but I don't know how to describe that architecture. I don't know the names or the particular style of the different architecture. I watched a video a while back where someone was doing a Greek mythology retelling, and they were talking about the fact of when they were working with the cover artist about the cover design, they had the artist originally did one type of column, and it was the wrong type and style for that time period, and it belonged to even a different, I think it was Roman instead of Greek. I think, I could be wrong. And so they corrected the artist and said, hey, can you switch these out for this type of column? And I was just like, I never would have seen that difference. I don't know anything about architecture to even remotely notice the difference unless you put them side by side. So this whole post had me thinking about things differently, especially where buildings and architecture are concerned, because I very much suffer from white room syndrome, and in my head I'll be like, this is what it looks like, but I can't describe that and put it on paper. And when I say I see it in my head, I don't actually see images. I've talked about this often about how like my mind works and how I don't picture things in my head. It was more of like this is related to, this will look like Notre Dame. This will look like a Victorian house. This will look like, and I'll have like examples from like movies and pictures I've already seen. And it would be more like the words in my head versus the actual imagery. All that set aside, this made me start thinking about how I go about doing description. How description enriches books. In the case of fantasy, which is what I mainly write, it fleshes out the world. It allows you to immerse yourself. I know we kind of sort of not exactly teasingly joke about how Tolkien could spend pages upon pages describing a forest, and let's face it, we live in the world of Tolkien because of his description, because he was using words and pages upon pages to describe different things. So we felt like we could immerse ourselves into that world because of it. And I even think that description is helpful in contemporary book settings, because you get the feeling of the different cultures, especially like if you are reading a genre with representation of a culture you are not familiar with. So I think we need more books with description in them, to the point where we can visually see what the author is trying to make us see. And I know that's something I personally struggle with, because I'm like, I know what I'm trying to describe, but I can't describe it. With all that being said, that means I needed to do a mindset change, and it's something I'm actively working on. How do we change how we see description? How do we change how we put that description in books? And I am going to be actively doing this over the next few months, weeks, years, probably. Actually, let's be real, it's probably gonna be years, because of the fact that I struggle with it so much. And I'm like, I know what I want, I don't know how to describe what I want. So I need to learn how to describe what I want. And just continuing on with the buildings as examples, I need to study architecture. I need to talk to experts, including archaeology is the only word that's popping in my head that's not the right word. I know. The people who work on architecture. The word will come to me eventually, and when it does, I will put it on the screen, because I honestly cannot remember it off the top of my head. But anyways, talk to experts, people who know what they're doing. I need to find photo references and be able to use those as a basis for what I'm trying to describe, or find people who can help me look at those photos and be like, okay, this is what I'm picturing in my head. This is what I want to use. How do I describe this in my books, kind of thing. However, there is a fear with that, especially with the rise in AI. There's a fear that what I'm looking at is not an actual reference photo. I need to make sure that I'm looking at stuff that is before AI, which is going to be difficult to do because AI is getting better and better with each passing day, but not the point. I need to confirm what I'm looking at with experts. Make sure I'm actually seeing something that is what I'm trying to describe and that it's not AI generated. I also need to compare with reputable sources, make sure, again, confirming that everything is legit, basically. As far as like examples go, where I'm going to be especially paying attention to this is in my Shifters and Mages series, because of the fact that it's a modern take on witches and familiars. However, there are scenes with historical events. There's a whole book that's based on historical events. The book Hunter's Betrayal, which is supposed to be like a prequel novel to the series without actually being a prequel novel. It's got time skips and stuff. But my point is that when we're back in that past history, I need to be able to accurately describe what is happening event-wise, what is going on, so that we know that this is a Puritan society and not a modern society. And when I wrote my draft that I sent to my editor, it was very obvious I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, because she actually corrected me. She's like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong historically. So I need to do my research, obviously. Better than what I had already done. Because my brain was not computing and making the connections between everything. Like, I knew, it goes back to I knew what I was looking at, but I didn't know how to describe what I was looking at, and that's fine. And going back to this example as well with the Shifters and Mages, it helps build your characters up too, because again, going back to the white room syndrome factor, Puck, who's my main character in the first book, her room, if we're just talking about a single room, her room is going to look different than Rand's room, which is the love interest. It's going to look different than Jenna, who is the main character in the second book. It's going to look different than Darren, who is the main love interest in the second book. It's going to look different than Jonathan, who is the main character in Hunter's Betrayal, who is that Puritan relative, that ancestor that started the whole war that's featured in all 4 books. Like, if I were to go back and do this as just an experiment and play around with the idea and like practice using the description, adding description to my stories, I would center on exactly one room, because all 5 of those characters that I just listed, Puck, Rand, Jenna, Darren, Jonathan, they all are going to have their room decorated different ways. And that helps build up who they are as characters. Now, I don't necessarily mean that you as an audience, if you read the books, are ever going to see what I'm doing. But it helps build that character up so I know who they are and what their personality is like. And it also helps me get better at description, so that when I'm doing something that's more like a epic fantasy, I can actively describe what I'm trying to describe. So it's more of a learning how to develop my skills more, because I do struggle with description especially. So that's just something I'm going to be tackling in the future. It's something I've been thinking about lately and something I want to actively work on. And I'm going to be building up my skill set in various ways. I might do an update on this video in the future to discuss where I'm going with this, how it's been going. But it's more, this video is more just a, like, here's what I've noticed and here's how I'm tackling it kind of video. There you have it. This was like a impromptu kind of video where I wanted to discuss how seeing a Tumblr post made me rethink how I'm doing stuff as far as description goes. If you've made it through this video, leave me some kind of plant emoji, any plant emoji. Leave them down in the comments section. And my question for you is, what's helped you with description in your own works? Or if you don't really want to talk about that because maybe you're like me and you struggle with description, what is something else that you struggle with, that seeing a post or a picture or image, or even just seeing it in another book, made you realize how much you struggle with it, and what might help you overcome that? Let me know in the comments down below. Anyways, I'll see you on my next video. Bye, Dragonlings.